Welcome to All Men Are Made. Engage what makes you strong, reject the habits making you weak, become the exceptional man the world needs you to be. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that you never miss a future chapter. You can support me by purchasing a hard copy of the book on Amazon and leaving an honest review. All purchases and reviews are massively appreciated, and they mean the world to me. Thank you. Chapter 16, Become an Expert. This is another short but effective chapter. If you wanted to be a lawyer, you'd need to become an expert on the law. If you want to be the purest, most powerful and exceptional version of yourself, you need to become an expert on being the purest, most powerful and exceptional version of yourself. There is no other way. You have to become an expert. You're wasting your mind if you're not filling it up. It's your car, and all life is a journey. You wouldn't drive your car on a long journey without filling it up with the fuel it needs to get there. Like finding out how great you can be, become the foremost expert on you. What do you want to know more about? What didn't you know before that you want to know now? What areas of your mental health are there to investigate? What do you not know about that you probably should? I like this question. Sometimes we focus our energy on learning about things we want to learn more about instead of things that we should know more about. Both are important, but the latter is often overlooked. Learn so much about yourself that your mental toughness becomes as solidified as a pair of old boots. What books can help you do this? What level of expertise can you attain to help you to do this? I'm going to share with you some of my favourite book suggestions now. There are five that left a serious imprint on my way of thinking and being. The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. The Way of Men by Jack Donovan. The Heart of the Buddha's Teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. These are all books that helped to shape me. I've read all more than once, and there'll be many books that speak to you on a personal level. I hope this is one of those books. But these are just a handful of my favourites. I approach reading my books the same way that I approach focused activity. I do so with purpose. I read to develop new ways of thinking. I take action on everything that I read. I use them to become an expert. As much as there are great books out there, there's also many books to avoid. Anything on becoming a player or pick-up artistry to trick women into fucking you. Don't fall into the short-term fixed trap of these types of strategies. They are fundamentally morally wrong, and those sort of messages, reject them. They don't align with the man you want to be. Getting what you want through deception is only ever of benefit in the short term. The mind keeps score on all of your deeds, good and bad. Resorting to tricks of seduction by deception does not make you valuable. It makes you a con artist and a fraud, and the man you're trying to become is neither. Having multiple disposable partners in today's world is not a flex. Retiring your parents, that's a flex. Buying your children their first cars or homes, that's a flex. Staying loyal to a quality romantic partner who's loyal to you, that's a flex. Having a lasting and meaningful relationship, that's a flex. Becoming an expert on everything you want to become an expert on, especially yourself, that's a flex. And as if you didn't need reminding, getting your life's work done without making excuses, that's a flex. Figuring out your destiny and fulfilling it, that's a flex. Becoming rare in a world of average men, that's a flex. Your manhood and masculinity is never defined by the number of one-night stands you have. What's important is not the volume of notches on your bedpost, but the quality of the woman you choose to share your bed with. If you focus on becoming the man of your dreams, then all you have to do is wait for the woman of your dreams to come to you. She will appear when you're least expecting it, and she will appear when you are best equipped to lead her correctly. That will be when you're an expert on everything you want to become an expert on, especially yourself. If this is the first book that you've read about becoming a great and exceptional man, my advice, go out, find, and read 15 more. Chapter 17. You're Already Superman. This is another one of my favourite chapters, because it's one of the first things I ever wrote, with regards to all men are made. But I've placed it here because it's only once you have begun to realise your full potential as a man do you realise that you're already Superman. Superhero movies are fantasy. Being human is reality. Living the hard reality of life is what you do best. I had an interesting conversation whilst out jogging with a friend recently. We had many interesting conversations, but this time we'd just finished our usual run when he asked me, "What is it to be human?" We would often do things like this, intentionally using our runs to get deep into life, regularly setting the world to rights and throwing each other sudden curveball questions. It wasn't out of the ordinary, but I took a moment and I decided to not answer immediately. Instead, I offered to give my thoughts during our next run a few days later. It was a question that for me needed deeper thought. Time was needed to answer a question like this. I went home, and over the course of the next 2 to 3 days, I started to give it more thought. I'll try now to give you my spoken response to my friend, and I hope I do it justice. I eventually settled on words to this effect. I believe that to be human is to be blessed with the gift of having various superpowers that every living creature on earth would kill to have. If all living creatures could understand one another and converse with each other the way we do, we would quickly discover that we are the envy of the entire animal kingdom. We have everything. We have abilities far beyond the capability of any of our mammalian friends currently inhabiting the same spinning earth as us. We have the ability to communicate through so many means. We can express ourselves in so many ways. We have spoken word, physicality. We can converse through writing, drawing, email, text, or sometimes ways that are tantamount to telepathy. It's truly incredible what we, as human beings, are capable of. We have the power of thought to be able to delve deeply into ourselves. We can tap into who we are as individuals. We can get stuck into our psyches. We are able to deliver deep analytical thoughts on why we are the way we are. We can cycle through every thought and every emotion within us, and we can use our self-knowledge to figure out precisely what it is and why it is we act in certain ways. We can travel by so many means. We can run, we can walk, we can climb, we can drive, we can cycle, we can row, we can fly, sail, swim, float, crawl, roll, spin, shoot, jump, hunt, and then we cook what we hunt. We choose what we eat, when we eat, and how. We devise incredible recipes, adding all manner of weird and wonderful flavourings. We choose to eat meat or vegetables or fruit. Our palates are refined, and our digestive systems are so evolved that we are practically unlimited in our choices of what we can consume. We create movies, books, theatres, sports, comedy, music, and we dance, often with graceful beauty or pure, unabandoned lunacy. We teach, we educate, we learn, we grow, we infuse ourselves with knowledge. We train our mind and we have the ability to master anything that we set our mind to. We train our bodies for whatever purpose we need to. We enhance ourselves in any way which we choose. And yet, the craziest thing about being human, even with everything I've just listed, I've barely even scratched the surface of what we're capable of. We are extraordinary. We are the fucking superheroes of this earth, and possibly the universe, maybe infinite universes. It's truly an amazing experience, and a gift to be human. Imagine you're watching the latest blockbuster in a movie theatre, and the main protagonist doesn't know yet that he has superpowers. The movie moves on, tension builds as it moves through the acts. You're on the edge of the seat, you're waiting, you're watching him struggle. With every step, you're with him, willing him on to realising his full potential. You want him to show courage and fortitude in the face of increasing adversity. You desperately want for him to recognise his powers. You desperately want for him to recognise his powers and then to use them to defeat evil. The man you see on the screen, he's acting out the words he alone has read and memorised. He's learned them and formed them into the character which you are now enjoying. It was then choreographed and filmed by a director, edited, cut, CGI added, and the whole piece marketed before release. All of this in itself is a superhuman feat, achieved through human endeavour, creativity, and well within our capabilities. The actor and the character that he's playing is in all of us, whether in the make-believe of the movie or the reality of the process. Imagine now reaching the end of the movie and it just ends. The main protagonist having never realised his full potential. You've willed him on through adversity, tragedy, struggle. You've longed to see him uncover every ounce of the powers you know from the beginning that he's been blessed with, and to begin using them to tear the villain of the story apart, like he always could. If only he could have realised this sooner, it would have been epic and joyous. What a crescendo of an ending it would have built to. Instead, it just ends. That's it. Roll credits. Finished. Lights up. Exit signs illuminated. Time to go home. Anti-climax. What a fucking con. But it's what you're doing every day. Every day is spent failing to realise your natural God-given potential. And then you end. You're surrounded everywhere by this unrealised potential. All you need to do is to use all of the natural attributes gifted to you at birth. By living life, you're already a superhero. Are you rooting for yourself the same way that you'd root for the heroes in your favourite movies? And are you backing yourself to win when the stakes are at their highest? Right now, for you, the stakes have never been higher. The rest of your life is the stake. The battle raging inside you is good versus evil. And it always is, the weakest versus the greatest. Way back at the beginning of the book, I said that I am always the weakest man alive and the greatest man alive. But by that, I meant the greatest man alive in my world. And it's your job to become the greatest man alive in your world. The good man in you, the great and exceptional man, is the master of self-control. And the evil man inside you, the weakest man inside you, is the man indulging in the habits and behaviours that have held him back for too long. What makes him so villainous and evil is the stealth with which he's crept up on you. But the strength you have to control him is what makes you so fucking powerful. And self-control is not only the key to happiness, but it's possibly the greatest superpower that you possess. You are Superman, and it's up to you to show the world that you're not a villain. You may possess the characteristics of one, but you control them. You're not a problem. You're the solution to problems, and saving yourself is paramount to saving your fucking world. Chapter 18. Excuses are for shithouses. We are surrounded every day by people who wake up every morning looking for a reason to be a victim. Don't be one of them. It's likely you've spent most of your life looking for excuses for not achieving anything. Excuses to hide from the world, instead of choosing engagement and alignment with it. Excuse making has become the norm. I did all the excuse making shit. I was the Michael Jordan of excuse making. I still do it. The only difference is I now catch myself in excuses, and then I take the action to combat my own shithousery, because I know that excuses are for the weak me, and action is for the strong me. Every single one of your regular failings can usually be blamed on yet another PME, a poor me event. The world is not out to get you. You just haven't figured out yet that it has been you all along. You have been ill. Your life has been sick. But it's been sick of you. In case you haven't been certain for the last 17 chapters, the medication for this illness is lifestyle change. My young cousin, Brian, works in my local gym. He's not figured any of this shit out yet either, and that's fine. He has youth on his side. He will when he's ready. At least that's the hope. But sadly, many of us never do. We get stuck in the perpetual victimhood loop of one poor me event after another until it's too late. We churn them out like biscuits on a production line. Brian's a good kid. He likes to party. He has a lot of friends and a positive outgoing personality. He keeps himself in good shape. Working in a gym has its perks. However, he's 21 years old, has no meaningful qualifications from high school, and he left as soon as he could. Currently, his future looks quite bleak. Apart from being a young, decent-looking kid who has time on his side, he doesn't have much else. Approaching the end of 2021, I asked him what he wants to do with his life. He told me he wants to get his fitness qualifications first, but that would need to wait until sometime in 2022, because that would be when he'd be ready. I knew the moment those words left his mouth, there was no reason for him to not do them right now. I also knew that telling him so would fall on deaf ears. I didn't mention it again, at least for now. I also expected that without me telling him, he too knew himself. It was in his eyes. The excuse-making cogs were turning. I see them more now. I recognise excuse-making more than ever. I've developed an instinctual sense for it, especially for when people are lying to themselves. I've lived it, therefore I find it easier to see it. The same excuses present themselves time and again, the obvious ones, such as having no time, not enough money, too much plates currently spinning. The obvious ones repeat themselves, but I can spot new ones with ease also. So, thinking maybe he just needed a push in the right direction, I got him a book on becoming a fitness entrepreneur. I decided I would give it to him one day at the gym, and at the very least, I wanted him to do was read the book, 10 minutes a day until he finishes it, to do the bare minimum that would cause no impediment to his daily routine. He looked me gratefully in the eye and agreed to do so. Days passed, then weeks. Each time I saw him in the gym, I asked, "Hey Brian, have you read any of that book yet?" Every time I got the same answer. "No, I haven't. I've just been too busy." 4 months passed. I asked the same question, occasionally, each time getting a sharper and sharper reply that he's just been too busy or he's not had time. By the end of July, I asked again. This time, I made sure to follow on a little bit more. I said, "Hey Brian, have you started the book yet?" "Oh no, not yet. I just really don't have the time," he replied with the same shoulders shrugged, exasperated look that he gives me each time. "Seriously," I said, "you've had that book now for almost 4 months and you're telling me you've not had time to read it for even 10 minutes? Not even once? Not even time for 5 measly pages?" There was an air of obvious disappointment flowing through my voice. Brian sighed. I could tell he was fed up with me asking the same question. He retorted now with a little bit of spikiness of his own. He said, "Look, I really haven't had time. What about yourself? What about your future? Do you not have time for that?" I said calmly. I pulled my tone back somewhat. I hoped I would get a knowing look, maybe witness a light bulb going off behind his eyes, a glimmer of acknowledgement that he knew I was on to his baloney. I'd hoped that he would recognise himself, that he had a good point. Eventually, he replied, "Yes, I don't even have time for myself." We both knew that he was lying, but I kept on pressing. I said, "So are you telling me that you don't have 10 minutes per day to spare for yourself?" He said, "Nope, I do not." "Okay," I said. "Let me ask you, have you ever heard of Elon Musk or Bill Gates?" "Of course I have," he rasped. "Great," I replied. "Then you'll also know how filthy stinking rich they are, and know how they have worked all the hours God sent to build, then grow their companies. You'll also be well aware that their wealth is at stratospheric levels. Elon Musk gets by on 6 hours sleep every night. He works 120-hour weeks. You work in a gym, 2 mornings, 3 afternoons. And you have the weekends off. Elon Musk still finds time to read books. Bill Gates reads a book a week. Are you telling me that you're so busy and so fucking important, your time is so scarce, that you have less opportunity to read books than Elon Musk and Bill Gates?" I continued. There was a hefty pause. He knew it. I knew it. I had him over a barrel. He had dug himself in deep. He'd bulldozed headfirst into his excuse that he had no time. The choice was now his. Dig in further, reaffirming his lie to himself, or accept that he's excuse-making. He chose his reply. Yes. This time, I had resigned myself to defeat. There was no point. His excuses were made, painted permanently inside his mind. No one was able to tell him otherwise. I recognised in that moment all the similar conversations I'd had with his mother over the years. Whenever the subject arose of her taking action to improve herself, she would find any excuse for not doing so. The excuse-making gene was often visible in her eyes, as she would shut up shop and run, tail between her legs, back to her hidey hole of ever regurgitating excuses and escapisms. It seems to me that she has disappointedly passed this same mindset directly on to her son. I was witnessing it firsthand, the generational excuse maker, raising the next generation of excuse makers. But the next batch seems even more determined to make even more excuses than the original excuse makers. The poor me event experts raising more poor me event experts. In the years to come, I think that conversation will come back to haunt him. I hope it does, but in a positive way, that he can't get it out of his head, and that one day it inspires him to take action, and he begins to read the book I got him. My fear is that he doesn't. I'm afraid he will tread in the same footsteps of fear as countless have done before him, the footprints of the aimless boys and men who have wandered it before, afraid to do anything to turn themselves from aimless and weak to driven and passionate. This story encapsulates perfectly the excuse-making mindset, and you're part of the excuse-making generation. This generation now are always looking for the next poor me event to blame a lack of action on. It's not your fault, but it is your fault if you do nothing about it. A poor me event is when something happened to me unexpectedly, which is why I couldn't finish the thing. Do you recognise that excuse? How often do you dine off this excuse? I'll tell you, you dine off it every day. The things that stop you doing what you need to range from the elaborate to the mundane, whichever way you use them. They're always to avoid that which you know you should be doing. Usually, the greater importance of the thing you know you need to be doing, the more elaborate the nature of the poor me event increases. You lie to yourself every day that the level of turmoil you're experiencing is too significant for you to do that which you need to. You must become hyper aware of doing this. No more making excuses. Not today, motherfucker. Your life's work doesn't have time for excuse making. Your destiny does not involve poor me events. You don't grow strong by saying I can't or I couldn't because. Brian, he fucking knew he was making excuses. He fucking knew he was lying both to me and to himself. It was visible in his eyes. That he's just too damn lazy and uninspired to take action. But no way was he going to admit it, because that would mean taking responsibility. It would mean facing himself head on and doing something about his future, and needing to do the work for himself. Witnessing this in such a young person, the denial, the lethargy, the total unwillingness to stop wasting valuable time, it was agonising, and it was made ever so painful because of the potential I see in him. With every conversation I have with him, I see the old me. I see the same potential I had in myself 20 years ago, and I find that painful, knowing that everything he's ever wanted in life is not being achieved or even targeted, because he refuses to bypass the parts of his mind that thinks his excuses are real. But they're not. The excuses you make to avoid the things that are important in life are not real. They are excuses, and they're for shithouses. Chapter 19. Deep baths and war. Wherever you are in your journey, whatever you're doing, how much progress you're making, it's important that you put your suffering into perspective. Have you ever known, truly known, suffering, or heroism for that matter? Have you seen horrors that no man should see? Have you witnessed barbarism so horrific that it torments you for the rest of your life? Have you ever had your resolve tested to its absolute fullest? I haven't. I know I haven't. And you probably haven't either. During my worst times of trying to break my alcohol habit, I would often run myself a bath, a deep, paint stripping off the walls, searing hot bath. I would do so most nights, for about 3 months, and for good reason. I'd begin running each bath between 8 and 8:30 in the evening. The local off-licences, shops and supermarkets in Scotland have a cut-off of 10 o'clock for selling alcohol. I knew that each night, as my kitchen clock ticked ominously towards this standard cut-off time, that my cravings would kick in, and they would be even stronger with each passing minute. I knew it was likely that I would buckle and race to the shop before it closed. I knew that if I did, I would buy alcohol and cigarettes, then I would drink it and smoke them all. Any good work getting to where I was would be undone by a moment of weakness, and I knew I couldn't allow this to happen. But fortunately, I had predicted this weakness in myself. So, at this time, I would run a deep bath and watch the hell of war. Any war movies or documentaries I could find. I would stay there until no shops were legally permitted to sell alcohol. I'd run each bath slowly. I'd monitor it closely until the temperature was perfect enough to scald my hairy Scottish bollocks, but not enough to render me infertile. Then I'd lower myself in, fire up my device, and I'd watch war movies and documentaries. It was the only technology I allowed myself in this time, but it was purposeful and it was deliberate, like everything else. The internal battle I had was raging, and I needed something, anything that included some sort of struggle or hardship. The crashing and clattering of war certainly helped to drown out the clanging of the thoughts in my head. I was in my own battle, but my struggles and my suffering were rendered obsolete by those endured in the theatre of real war. And that's why this incredibly short chapter exists. Because I look back now and I realise that I watched all these movies and documentaries because they put my suffering into perspective. Anything that I was going through was mediocre and downright pitiful by comparison to the suffering of those affected by real war. Those who fight in and those whose lives are ravaged by them. That's suffering. There's also true heroism in war. Pain suffered and overcome. Determination. Ultimate sacrifice. My problems paled into insignificance compared to the problems faced by anyone facing war. My suffering, it needed putting in its place. So whatever area of yourself you're working on right now, however you're working on it, put it into perspective. I chose deep baths in war. You may choose something different, but whatever it is, you need to make sure that you get the perspective that you need on your suffering and the suffering of others. Gaining this profound perspective serves as a reminder that you have it good compared to others now, and our predecessors of not so long ago. And despite what you may think, in the early throes of trying to change your habits and replacing them with good ones, all of your suffering is manageable, and it is easy when compared to the suffering of those in the theatre of war.